Right now, a single Wall Street firm is advising the Federal Reserve on monetary policy, finalizing a deal to control ports along the Panama Canal, and brokering the massive post-war reconstruction of Ukraine. BlackRock is officially an asset manager, a company that handles retirement funds and investments. Yet they operate with the diplomatic reach, political immunity, and infrastructural control of a sovereign nation. The architect behind this empire is Larry Fink, and his path to global dominance is rooted in a lifelong preoccupation with one specific concept: risk. To understand how BlackRock quietly captured the physical bottlenecks of modern civilization, we have to go back to a single cataclysmic mistake that taught Fink exactly how to manipulate that risk. Welcome to 1970s Wall Street. Here, a young Larry Fink pioneers a complex financial product called mortgage-backed securities. The concept is simple. Take everyday home loans, bake them into one large product, and slice them up to sell to investors. It was the perfect instrument to monetize the American dream. Fink's creation printed money by the millions, making him the youngest managing director in the history of his firm, First Boston. Everyone assumed he was on the fast track to becoming CEO. Then he made a bet on interest rates. Fink was certain rates would rise, but he bought financial insurance just in case they fell. The problem? He used incorrect numbers to calculate his hedge. When rates actually dropped, his protection failed. That single mathematical error cost his firm $100 million overnight. The fallout was brutal. Despite generating $1 billion during his tenure, Fink became a pariah. People stopped talking to him in the hallways. Soon after, he was jobless, publicly humiliated by his inability to protect against the downside of a trade. Fink walked away vowing to never hold the losing end of a bet again. In 1988, he launched BlackRock with a pivot. Instead of taking on risk, he would charge others for the calculation and management of it. To execute this vision, BlackRock built a proprietary software platform called Aladdin. Originally an internal risk management tool, Aladdin eventually grew into the underlying operating system for global finance. Today, this system tracks an astounding $21 trillion in assets. It silently monitors the portfolios of roughly 240 clients, including BlackRock's fiercest competitors and massive sovereign pension funds. Aladdin allows users to simulate endless market crisis scenarios in milliseconds. If mortgages default in California or interest rates spike, the software instantly recalculates, allowing institutions to predict and sidestep economic fallout before it happens. In 2008, the global economy collapsed. The irony is that the destruction was fueled by the exact same mortgage-backed securities that Larry Fink helped invent decades earlier. While giant legacy banks woke up to realize their toxic investments were evaporating, BlackRock quietly weathered the storm. Aladdin's risk models had successfully protected them from the worst of the carnage, leaving them flush with cash while their rivals bled out. Fink used the chaos to go on a shopping spree. When Barclays desperately needed cash, BlackRock acquired their crown jewel, Barclays Global Investors, at a steep discount. This single purchase included iShares, making BlackRock the world's largest provider of passive ETFs. The 2008 crash took BlackRock from a specialized software and risk analysis firm and turned them into the world's largest asset manager. Now, they owned massive chunks of almost every major company imaginable, granting them immense voting power over corporate America. Following the crash, regulators cracked down. They slapped the biggest banks with a too-big-to-fail label, triggering strict oversight and expensive capital reserves. As the largest asset manager on Earth, BlackRock seemed destined for the same heavy chains, but they launched an aggressive lobbying blitz to carve out a loophole. BlackRock successfully argued that they were merely a passive investor. Legally, they claimed they just manage other people's money, meaning a BlackRock collapse wouldn't pose any systemic risk to the economy. They maintained this regulatory immunity through a highly effective revolving door. Over 100 individuals have moved seamlessly back and forth between executive roles at BlackRock and top government positions at the United States Treasury and the Federal Reserve. With the regulators placated, Fink launched a highly publicized ESG, environmental, social, and governance campaign. While briefly hailed as moral capitalism, insiders noted it was largely a marketing spin to justify higher management fees. When the initiative drew heavy political fire, BlackRock quietly scrubbed the language and walked away. By embedding their own alumni into the agencies meant to watch them, BlackRock cleared a path for their biggest expansion yet, one that would occur entirely outside the view of traditional bank regulators. With financial markets reaching a saturation point, Larry Fink realized the next massive opportunity wasn't in abstract stocks or bonds. BlackRock is now executing a $68 trillion game plan to dominate physical infrastructure around the world. In early 2024, they agreed to buy Global Infrastructure Partners for $12.5 billion. This single move instantly gave BlackRock control over roughly $150 billion in critical physical assets, including international shipping ports, bridges, and energy grids. The dark logic of infrastructure investing is that it creates an inescapable monopoly. Citizens cannot simply choose to use a different regional airport, opt out of a local water system, or route their ships through a second Panama Canal. For BlackRock, this means guaranteed, stable profits through rising user fees. Even if they neglect the long-term maintenance of these essential public utilities, consumers have absolutely no alternative but to keep paying. Owning infrastructure crosses a terrifying line. By acquiring the physical bottlenecks of human survival, BlackRock has moved beyond managing paper assets and into the direct control of daily life. The most extreme manifestation of this strategy is playing out in Ukraine. Just months into the conflict, Larry Fink personally struck a deal with President Zelensky, placing BlackRock as the primary gatekeeper for the entire post-war reconstruction of the country. To fund rebuilding in a volatile war zone, BlackRock is utilizing a complex financial mechanism they call catalytic capital. Before committing private funds to rebuild shattered grids, BlackRock demands public governments wrap their investments in guarantees, using tax dollars as a protective shield. If the infrastructure is destroyed again, taxpayers absorb all losses. If it succeeds, BlackRock extracts the profits. Larry Fink started his career losing $100 million because his firm held the risk. Today, 40 years later, he has rewritten the global system so that the public holds all the risk, and BlackRock holds the world.